Welcome back to another UFC fight prediction video. In this video, I'll be predicting the main card fights of UFC 223 Ferguson versus Khabib. And without further ado, let's get into our first fight prediction. In our first fight on the main card, we have Alec versus Paul Felder in the lightweight division. Both fighters are well-rounded and ready for wherever the fight will take place. But I think both fighters are fighters that will prefer to strike, prefer to stand and bang, and prefer to get things done on their feet. And I think that's how the fight will play out. Alec being more of a boxing style of striker, and Paul Felder being more of a kickboxing / Muay Thai style of fighter, has very good elbows and stuff like that, and knees, and all the 8 deadly limbs, stuff like that. So I think this fight, Alec boxing will serve him well, and I think that's what eventually will basically be the telling point of which gets him the victory in this fight. Him using his boxing and his angles and pretty much his knowledge of the sweet science will help him greatly in this fight and will pull out the W for him. I think that was kind of shown when Pearson fought Paul Felder, and Paul Felder never really was able to get going. Pearson was able to use angles and outbox him basically, and not let Paul Felder really ever get going and landing strikes he wanted to land and getting off with his aggression. He was kind of kept it like was able to get edged out on the decision against Pearson in that fight, just based off him never really being able to get going. I think this fight, Alec is a slightly better boxer than Pearson, and probably a significantly better fighter based off how when they fought, that Alec ran through him. But I think that as far as technical boxing goes, I think Alec is only slightly better than Pearson at that. And I think he'll be able to see the same weaknesses in Paul Felder's striking game and the overall MMA game. Is they both are similar, like around the same level as wrestling. Well, maybe not the same, but as far as effective wrestling, I think they're around the same level of wrestling. So I don't think Paul Felder will be able to really mix and wrestling that much, or Alec will need to mix and wrestling that much. And pretty much will be a stand-up fight throughout. But it definitely could edge the fight for one of the fighters. But I see more coming down to the striking exchanges. I see Alec just being quicker to the punch. He has faster hands. I see him being better with his time, and I see him just slightly edging Paul Felder enough that it'll be a clear edge, and like he'll outland him at least 2 to 3 strikes every round, and he'll be the one landing the harder, significant strikes, because Paul Felder won't really be able to land his power, and if he does land it, it won't be very often. It'll be very few, far in between. So after 3 rounds, I see Alec and as a matter of fact, it's not going to be a finish. I don't see this finish because I see Paul Felder is a tough fighter. He's never really been finished in his pro career. Alec has been finished in his pro career, but they both are very tough and durable fighters who won't at any point quit. You will have to put them out of there completely for you to get a finish on either opponent. So I see it not being that, like the gap between their skill sets not being that far that Alec would just finish Paul Felder in this fight. Just to see him edging him and just being the better fighter overall, and it's being showcased in this fight. And Alec doing that much more that it will be a clear-cut decision for Alec after 3 rounds. So I have Alec in this fight via decision. In our next fight, we have Moicano versus Anthony Pettis in the lightweight division. Anthony Pettis was once the UFC's lightweight champion. He was a star. Well, he still is a star. He still has a lot of talent, but the sport has caught up to him. The division has caught up with him, and people know what he does well, what he doesn't do well, and they kind of have a blueprint on how to beat him. Moicano is a tall fighter. Has good wrestling, and has good submission skills, good grappler. And that doesn't bode well for Pettis. Pettis is still a well-rounded fighter, but he has shown weakness to wrestlers, and he has shown like good submission ability. He does sometimes just get things done with his talent. As far as in the Charles Oliveira fight, he would turn over and from like the back mount, he has back taken and just turn around and end up in Charles Oliveira's guard, and he did the same against Dustin Poirier. So a lot of times he doesn't do the most actually technical stuff in these positions. I think Chiesa will pretty much try to put him in these same positions or worse positions. And secure these positions. Pettis has been trying to get out of these positions in not the most technical way. And as far as on the feet, you know what Pettis does well. He does have, like, his hands are okay, but that's not really where his danger is. So you had to respect his hands, but you can largely just focus on his kick. That's where he'll do most of his damage. Kicks to the body, kick to the leg, kick to the head. And I think with the kicks and stuff, they always leave you open to the strikes down the middle like a straight. And I think Chiesa will be, with his range and his height, I think he'll be like pervy to that. And when he see Pettis either like trying to think about a kick or I guess once he studied Pettis enough, he knows what, like, when he's setting up certain things, and he'll be trying to fire that straight down there and time Pettis' kicks, either with a straight or maybe after landing straight a couple times, he'll go for a double leg. Mike Chiesa is a taller fighter, so he won't have he won't have the lower center of gravity. It'll be harder to get down to those takedowns that actually usually get Pettis down, because Pettis usually doesn't get taken down by body lock clinches or upper body clinches. It's usually the singles and double legs, stuff like that. So I think for Michael Chiesa to get to those takedowns, he will have to mix in the straight punches to draw off Pettis' kicks. And also, once Pettis started becoming wary of those straights, that will set up the takedown. And I think Chiesa will be able to pretty much, I don't think he'll finish Pettis, but I think he'll be able to do enough that once he take Pettis down, he'll have significant top time, like controlling, like ground control time, being in the top position, being in the advantageous position. He'll probably land some damaging shots. He'll probably have maybe some close calls with submissions, but I think Pettis is tough enough, and he's still knowledgeable enough on the ground and savvy enough on the ground that he'll be able to get his way out of bad positions, get back to his feet, and make a good fight for him. But I think just off how much time he gives him on the ground and how much he's pretty much the blueprint is out there for Pettis, I think Chiesa will be able to expose it. I mean, not expose it, but will be able to use that same game plan in his own way to pull out a decision on Pettis. And I like Pettis, and I want him to win, but I see in this fight, his blueprint is just out there, and I see Chiesa winning via decision. In our next fight, we have Calvin Kattar versus Renato Moicano in the featherweight division. And both of these fighters are sleeper contenders in the division. This will be a tough matchup. They're both two of the bigger fighters at 145. They're not just big in height. They're big in height and size, filled out fighters. They got the strength too with the size. They're both talented, technical. So these people, I can see them challenging for the title in a year or even less. I think they're already at that point, and I think they're still only getting better at this point. And I think both around 5'10", 5'11", maybe even taller. I doubt probably maybe even 6'1" at the tallest, I think. Good everywhere. I think Moicano is more proficient on the ground. He has very good submission skills, and I think he doesn't have any knockout finishes yet. But as dangerous as his submission skills are, he's getting even better on the feet, so that's scary, and he's still getting better. Calvin Kattar is still getting better. He has pretty solid wrestling. He's real strong. He has good striking, awareness and understanding, and he also has the power with that striking, which makes it scary. And like I said, only getting better. I think this fight, they're pretty much not mirror images of each other, but they are very similar in ways. Maybe not exactly the same, but almost in the subtype of fighter, they're kind of similar. I think this fight will play out. It's a full mixed martial arts fight. I think Moicano, even though I think they are the same height, I feel like Moicano's a little bit longer. Maybe with his leg reach, he is a little bit longer, and that will be able to allow him to get in, probably be the fighter that have the striking advantage as far as just output and who will be landing more strikes in this fight, just often really being around similar skill sets in just about every area. So I see and understand, I see Moicano being a fighter landing more strikes. They both oftentimes may not prefer to be in the brawl. They like to fight on the outside or on the back foot sometimes, and they're very good at doing it. I know Moicano in his fight against Brian Ortega, he was able to put on a lot of output. He looked real good against Brian Ortega, real good. Looked scary good. And he was able to put on, but Brian Ortega was able to break him down. And Calvin Kattar is somebody that also likes to fight on the back foot, even though he could be dangerous when he comes forward. But they both prefer to sometimes fight on the back foot and just kind of pick their opponent apart and outland them and pretty much do damage, like when they want to do damage, and not really engage and give their opponent a chance to really get into the fight. That's their game. So in this fight, like I said, I think Moicano will have the striking advantage, just all been the leg reach, and I think he puts up more value. I think Calvin Kattar only puts up value when he's really just has the advantage, he's just getting the better on your feet, then he starts to pick up value. I think what Moicano, you've seen the Ortega fight, it was a back and forth fight. Moicano was constantly putting up volume and at high pace. I think his strikes are a slightly bit faster than Calvin Kattar, just a slightly bit faster. So I think he'll be landing more strike. It's kind of come down to who can do something different, but I think at that point it's going to be a close, very close decision, close matchup. It's going to be not that many strikes been outlanded by either opponent. It's going to be some scary moments for both fighters. They both present a lot of dangers to each other. And I think Moicano would just be the fighter edging out Kattar by 2 to 3 strikes. And if Calvin Kattar starts to feel that the fight's not going his way, he'll try to go to grappling. Now I think that's when he'll make a mistake, and Moicano will be able to out grapple him, gain an advantageous position, but I don't think he'll finish Kattar. So after 3 rounds, I think it'll be a close fight, as I said, a very close fight. But I think Moicano just has just a little bit more than Calvin Kattar at this moment. So I see Moicano be a 3-round decision. In our co-main event, we have a rematch of Rose Namajunas versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk in the strawweight division. And that first fight was like one of the biggest upsets in MMA history. Joanna was looking so good and getting better with each fight, and actually beating several opponents that clear-cut beat Namajunas. And this was like Namajunas looking better than ever. So we don't know if it was like luck, the weight cut, or just a case of bad style match. Like she just has her numbers somehow. But all we know, we didn't really get to see much in that fight except Joanna just get dropped several times and finish. That was pretty much the whole fight. And it was like, I think maybe less than 3 minutes, the first fight was. So you don't really get to see much. I still think Joanna overall has the better skill set and is more apt to beat like most people in the division. I think Rose Namajunas still has weaknesses, some people in the division, but this is not those other people. This is Rose Namajunas versus Joanna. Nobody else is in the ring. So all we've seen is that Rose Namajunas ran through Joanna, and typically the fighter that ran through the opponent runs through them again, especially if they're the younger fighter and only getting better. The older fighter tends to get worse. The younger fighter tends to get better, and they already beat you. They'll beat you again. That's kind of not the best breakdown. I'm gonna kind of break down more. I think Joanna is good when she's able to get off her like volume, like when she's able to start getting her pace and she starts to ride that pace and she rides her momentum well. She gets better with the fight. She can start putting out that high output, doing like 20 punch combos with kicks and all that stuff. Like that's when she's at her best. She starts finding her range and she can hit you at will with like a 20 piece combo. That's when Joanna is good, and she starts like pacing you down, starts hunting you down, and just piling up strikes on you, piling up volume. She's definitely not a power puncher per se, like really not a power puncher. She's more of a volume puncher. Rose Namajunas is still not really like, kind of hard to explain her style. She just kind of just rolls. She's definitely not like a brawler type fighter. She's like an outside fighter. So that would kind of help her in this fight because Joanna likes to get in close. She does have a jab, and like when she needs to, opponent that she needs to avoid, her footwork look good, and she could avoid stuff, and she could like keep the range. But more so when you see Joanna, she likes to be in people's face with most opponents. And I think it's kind of distorted in Rose fight. She fought an opponent that wanted to keep distance and was able to keep distance well and control the range and jump in with strikes or set up strikes. And Joanna was never really able to get any strikes going, never really able to get her momentum like she was able to get. I think Joanna has actually a suspect chin. And she was dropped several times by Claudia from like even jabs and stuff. I think she was rocked by Carolina. In the Rose Namajunas fight, her chin looked real suspect, and she was getting dropped by like not even like really full on power shots. She was getting dropped and affected like very bad. Like she was not having a very good reaction to those strikes. So when I see in this fight, I think as good as Joanna is, I think Rose is going to do much of the same, but it's going to be a more full out fight. I think Rose is going to, instead of just finishing her quick this time, even though she's not going to try to just drag the fight out, it's like that's not her intention. I think Joanna's going to be more prepared for this fight, but I think Rose is going to show those holes and why she beat her the first time and why it wasn't a fluke. She's going to show you to expose the weaknesses and the gaps in Joanna's games that many fighters and many people weren't able to see, whether it be like me, like somebody that's observing the fight, or people that have fought Joanna in the past. She'll be able to expose the holes that she like was able to take advantage of in the first fight. And I see her just pretty much drawing off Joanna's range. Joanna would never be like not allowing Joanna to get off much. I think as far as grappling, I think Joanna is not really that great a grappler. She's good at defending grappling, but she's not going to be that offensive grappler. So I think if she goes to the ground and tries to mix it up like that, I think Rose can potentially submit her that way. So in this fight, I see Rose doing much of the same, and I see her finishing her a little bit later, and I see a third round submission for Rose Namajunas. In our main event, we have Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov in the lightweight division for what should be the official UFC lightweight title. But we aren't too sure because Dana White and the UFC are kind of flip-flopping whether or not they are actually stripping Conor or not, or whether he's still the champion or not. So it's definitely for some belt because Tony Ferguson is the interim champion. And this is a battle of two fighters who are very much in their prime, still have a lot of great performances left. Like this fight itself could be a great performance for either fighter or for even both fighters. So it's still a lot of potential in these fighters. So this is a very anticipated fight and one of the better fights in UFC history and definitely in recent history. So in this fight, somebody kind of told me, like I was reading like this off Twitter and stuff because I follow other MMA people, and somebody made an interesting point that Khabib, he doesn't play guard. He'll like quickly take you down and get the half guard and pretty much find ways to neutralize those submissions. And so that Tony Ferguson won't even get a chance to really go for his submissions. And I think Khabib is a very heavy wrestler. He's very strong. Tony Ferguson was kind of exposed well, not really exposed. It was already known, but it was exposed even more so against Kevin Lee. How easily Kevin Lee was able to gain mount on Tony Ferguson, was easily able to take him down and control him. I think Khabib is a more experienced fighter. I think his cardio is better than Kevin Lee's. His ground and pound is better than Kevin Lee. Maybe his submission game, and maybe he doesn't pass quite as fast as Kevin Lee. But his top game is definitely better than Kevin Lee. I think he's stronger on top. His ground and pound is significantly better. His control is significantly better. Cardio is significantly better, especially since Kevin Lee has staph infection. So that's why I think Khabib will be able to do much of what Kevin Lee did in the first round and able to take Tony Ferguson down and control him. I don't think it should be too much of a problem. It's not like that was even the first time Tony Ferguson was controlled. He was controlled against Danny Castillo in that fight. While he went for many submissions, I think Danny Castillo still was able to shut down most of his submissions and stay on top most of the fight. And I think in this fight, Khabib won't even allow Tony Ferguson to draw up submission attempts as much or frequently, and will constantly be hitting with ground and pound. But I think Tony Ferguson is very good at his hips and transitioning, that at the point when he won't be someone like a dead target on their back or on their stomach. He will be constantly moving and constantly trying to not get finished and flattened out and finished by Khabib, or giving up his neck or any type of thing like that where it would be a finish of the fight. But I think see Khabib constantly putting Ferguson on his back and put him in bad positioning and hitting him with ground and pound throughout the fight. And I think Khabib's ground and pound is great, but I don't think he's necessarily that ground and pound that just finishes you unless you're like a dead fish on the ground, like say Michael Johnson. Ferguson is definitely not no Michael Johnson on the ground. So he'll constantly be moving. I think he'll have to be able to even get back up to his feet a couple times. But I see if Khabib be able to get him down every single time and hold him down for significant enough time on the ground each round that he'll be able to win a decision pretty clean cut. Ferguson might have his moments, but I think if he does have his moments, like too many moments, I think Ferguson definitely could sway this decision. I mean, sway this fight. Especially if he was able to weather, like, cause Khabib to tire. I think Ferguson has significantly better cardio than Khabib. But I think Khabib's going to put him make this fight in a way that he doesn't have to exert himself too much. And I think he's going to be knowledgeable of Ferguson's cardio. And I see Khabib just using his stamina wisely and finding positions wisely and not really giving Ferguson ever a chance to get into the fight, whether it be through submission attempts or trying to get submission, or whether it be through Khabib exerting himself too much early and blowing his gasket and then just leaving himself vulnerable to strikes and anything else Ferguson has to attack him with. So after 5 rounds, I just see Khabib really just winning every single round in this fight. Never giving Ferguson a chance. Because if he gives Ferguson a chance, that's like pretty much the fight switches to Ferguson if he gives Ferguson the chances that Ferguson needs. But if he does Khabib like he does Khabib, takes him down, controls him, lands ground and pound, stay in his face, never give him much breathing room, he'll be able to win a pretty clean-cut, very easy decision, but not like a super dominant decision. So after 3 rounds, I see like a 50-45 decision for Khabib Nurmagomedov, and he'll win the interim championship or the undisputed lightweight championship. So that completes my fight predictions for UFC 223. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and come back for more videos. Peace.